Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle Haas. And in this video, we have to talk about the old adage, buy the rumor and sell the news, because apparently we've been lied to. That is bupkis. Because right now in the comic book market, the only thing that you really got to do is sell the rumor and buy the news, apparently, because anything that comes out or it's a book related to the current movie or the current cultural event that is happening in the market is ironically the best time to buy. And anytime you have a book that is coming out based in the rumor mill, based on what could in theory be, that's apparently the worst time to buy the book and probably the best time to sell. So in this video, we're going to talk about some of the recent announcements that have come out. We got the Wonder Man casting to talk about, and we are just a week away from Black Panther, and a lot of those Black Panther books are definitely crashing pretty hard. So in this video, we're going to talk about that. But before I get into the video, if you guys could drop me a like or a comment or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, helps support the channel, do all those things, I would appreciate it. But let us get into this video here today. Now, you got to excuse me, I am feeling a little bit under the weather. I think I went too hard during Halloween, too many parties, stayed up too late, had a little too much fun, and I am feeling it right now. But that doesn't mean we can't have comic book YouTube videos. And the first thing we got to talk about is, of course, this announcement right here that kind of sets up our conversation today. This is a Variety article where they came out and announced that apparently Yahya Abdul-Mateen, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, is going to be playing the role of Wonder Man in the Disney Plus show. Definitely a surprise choice. I mean, I'm somewhat familiar with this actor. He seems pretty good overall. He was obviously in Aquaman. He was in Candyman, some other shows and movies and things like that. So he seems like he could be very, very capable, but it'll be interesting to see if he can kind of take on that kind of cocky Hollywood Simon Williams personality that I identified with the character. But of course, you know, when you have these sort of rumor announcements, news things like this, you saw a big surge back up in the market for the Wonder Man books. Of course, this is Key Collector, the Trending 20, and kind of like what we were talking about earlier this week, of course, we have all the Vision books on the Trending 20, but it's really interesting to see that just because we got this casting announcement, you see Wonder Man #1 back on the list right here. You see Wonder Man #1 from 1986, this book as well, kind of back on the list, which I think is really, really interesting if you are a Bill Sienkiewicz fan. There's also the Marvel Premiere book that I personally really like. I kind of feel like that's, the Wonder Man first solo title. And then, of course, you have Avengers #9, first appearance of Wonder Man, great early Silver Age Avengers book right here. Definitely an interesting thing, because usually when you have kind of these announcements, yes, you can maybe see the solo series and things like that, because those are the type of books that people can kind of FOMO into from a budget standpoint. But you did see 333% increased copies for this book this particular week, which is definitely pretty surprising that the Silver Age book would show up on this list. But we're going to get into more of that in a second. Then you have some Black Panther books as well showing up on the list. Of course, the first appearance of Shuri, Black Panther #2. And this is kind of where I think it's really interesting when we talk about, the idea of this video, which is that, thought or that adage of buying the rumor and selling the news. This is a very famous kind of stock market term that people like to use in the market. And kind of what we're seeing with comic books, which I think is, really interesting, is that, it feels like we're kind of moving to this plate where the opposite is actually true, where you actually want to sell the rumor and buy the news. If we're thinking in this kind of analogy that the rumor for, Avengers #9 first appearance of Wonder Man is when we get the announcement of the show, or we get, the announcement of, the casting or whatever the case may be. I would kind of consider these things the rumor. And then the news, in my analogy, would be, eventually when we would get, say, the trailer for Black Panther, or we would be, quickly approaching the release of the Black Panther film, where in theory you would be having kind of peak FOMO for these particular properties. But from a financial standpoint, that is actually not proving to be the case. But I kind of wanted to show you guys this right here with, Wonder Man, where it's like, you have this original kind of announcement back in June when we were going to be getting the Wonder Man show. And this book instantly doubled overnight, jumped up to $14.25, $12.50. And then you kind of had to cool off for some time. And then, coming off the heels of this casting announcement, now we're sort of back up to $11.25. But, I kind of have this the suspicion that, kind of like what I was talking about with my Silver Age index, where when you do the values and you look at this book as a book that sold for, say $550 back in 2020, if you just do the calculations, this book is likely going to correct back down to, the 15% year over year, which is going to be below that of 1125. So by the time we actually get, the Wonder Man show or whatever it is on Disney Plus, when we kind of get to that news sort of segment, we're actually getting the trailers for the character, we're getting the, images of the show. I actually think that ironically, that's going to be a better time to buy this particular book because of the fact that that's the way that the market is sort of operating at this point now, where everybody is trying to buy those rumors and everybody is trying to sell during the news. Similarly, if we talk about how, we are just a week away from Black Panther. And of course, I think the big character that is kind of coming out of the Wakanda Forever movie is the introduction of Riri Williams Ironheart. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of big kind of Black Panther books that related to the movie. Of course, there's FF52, there's the first appearance of Shuri, but I think this one is kind of the most interesting one to talk about, at least in terms of the idea of this video and kind of where we are right now with the comic book market. Of course, Invincible Iron Man #9, this is the first full appearance of Riri Williams Ironheart, and this is a book that has been absolutely tanking in the market. I mean, just look at the graph right there, see how drastic it is, and this was something that was basically bound to happen. I mean, I haven't actually put together the kind of modern index yet. I haven't put together the Copper Age index like I want to, but I just have to imagine that the formulas for those particular indexes are probably following a very similar path to that of the Bronze Age index. I would assume that basically the top 100 key books in both of those eras have had their kind of 100% correction, and this particular graph for Riri Williams is indicative of what those indexes would likely look like as well, where now you kind of see the prices for this book, last couple sales at $364, $385, selling for, basically around the same price that this book was selling for back in 2020, which interestingly enough, you could definitely argue is actually an overcorrection for where the values of this book are. But, kind of the problem with that is, when I talk about one of my other videos, the whiteboard video where I was talking about the Whitman paradox, is, you just have to kind of ask the question, like, how many Riri Williams holders are there out there in the market? I think everybody had the idea that when we got Riri Williams in the MCU, everybody was stacking their Invincible Iron Man #9s and looking to flip it out there in the market. And you just have too many out there that are trying to be sold and capitalize on the hype of Wakanda Forever. I mean, look at how many 9.8s have gone in October alone. I mean, this is such a large volume of sales that, there's just no way that you would be able to kind of keep up with the prices for this book at that 4-figure range. I mean, this is just the year of 2022. Just too many copies out there in the market, too many people looking to undercut each other, and too many people at this point right now just not, having the diamond hands, not willing to kind of hold on to their book, looking to kind of liquidate it in this current market, and also before we get this film. So very interesting to kind of look at this and think of it as, buying the news. I mean, when I look at this particular graph, this particular book, the fact that this thing is selling for the same prices that it was going for in 2020, to me feels like this is probably a great time to buy this book. I mean, how much lower can this book possibly go? I guess it could go down to the, $150 range, the $200 range, or whatever it is, back to the 2019 prices. But, I also don't think that's going to happen either, because, at that point, if we get to the other side of the movie, if you're somebody who has this book, you might as well hold it until we get Ironheart, the Disney Plus show, sometime next year. I mean, there's no point in selling it at this point if it's already gone down to, say, $150. And at that point, if you're a $150 9.8 first appearance book, that feels like a good buy, no matter, what character we're talking about. Some of the other Black Panther books I kind of wanted to quickly talk about, just because we're a week out from the movie, and I think it's really interesting, this idea of buying the news. Here's another book right here, Submariner #1. Of course, this is the big premiere issue, the first kind of ongoing series for the Submariner, at least in terms of Marvel comic books. And this is one of those books that, was so hot in the market for a long, long time. And I remember making a Go collect hottest video and asking you guys the question of like, do we think that Submariner is a flip character? Do we feel like people are stacking the books right now and looking to capitalize, when we get to the Black Panther movie? Definitely people had different opinions on that, but it definitely feels like, it could just be the state of the market. Every book is crashing, every book is correcting, or it could really just be that, this particular book, was one of those books that people were looking to capitalize on for the Black Panther film. Here at the 7.0 range, you see last couple sales for this, a Heritage auction and an eBay auction going for $475 and $480 respectively. This was a book that was easily at the $1,000 price point at some point. And, we're kind of back to that level where this book is basically selling at the same price it was going for in 2020, which again, I like to sort of reiterate that, if we're looking at the Silver Age Index and thinking about, comic books being something that typically do perform, at that 15% year over year, for somebody who actually believes in the future of the comic book market, this is probably a good time to buy that particular book, Submariner #1. I mean, not only is it ironically, the best time to own it in terms of like, being able to watch the movie and feel like you're participating in owning, the book that associates with the character on the screen, but it is also the best time to buy because it feels like everybody is trying to liquidate their books out there in the market. And that's something that I think is, again, really interesting and something I think we need to continue to look out for, with as we go into 2023, this idea of selling the rumor and buying the news. It does sort of feel like there's going to be more opportunities to get the books that you want when we're actually getting those Disney Plus shows or those movies that relate to those properties and those characters, because there's going to be such an influx of supply, people trying to capitalize. But if we're talking about, news announcements, all of a sudden Sacha Baron Cohen is going to be playing Mephisto, things like that, that ironically is going to be the time that you want to sell, because, those are going to be the times when people, FOMO the hardest, thinking that they want to get ahead of the market. And for a time, this was actually the case that you could actually do this. I remember if you rewind the clock back to 2020 and we had the very first announcement that Jonathan Majors was going to be playing Kang the Conqueror. Well, if you bought that book at that time, you would have done very well for yourself because, buying that rumor, so to speak, was actually still a good time to do it because the book would continue to go up in value through Loki, through where we are now with Kang Dynasty and Ant-Man 3, and, just the constant appearances and news that we've been getting for Kang the Conqueror, where, the market that we're in right now, if we get the announcement or the casting announcement for Wonder Man, this may not be a good time to pick up that Avengers #9, because I feel like that book still has some correcting to do based on our index projections. So that's all I have for this video. That was me just kind of talking about some of the interesting news announcements, some of the interesting rumor announcements going out there in the market. Let me know what you guys think. Are you guys excited for Black Panther? How are you feeling about your Black Panther keys? Are you guys looking to sell them? Are you guys looking to pick some up? I definitely think now is probably, ironically, a good time to pick up a lot of those Black Panther books. Anyways, that's all for this video. Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I'll see you in the next one.